Hello and welcome to Fort Stanton Historic Site. My name is John Schultz, one of the interpretive rangers here, and I'm here today to talk to you about life as a soldier in the 1850s. Fort Stanton was established in 1855 as a military reservation over 160 years ago. It had numerous missions as a military post here in southern New Mexico. Its primary mission was to control and protect the Mescalero Apache, a local tribe here in southern New Mexico. It was also tasked with protecting settlers heading west from the United States areas into the newly established New Mexico territory. The Army also was tasked with mapping all the new territories, including New Mexico, which were all brought over to the United States after the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, ending the Mexican-American War. New Mexico itself was established as an official territory in 1850 with the United States of America. When Fort Stanton was established in the 1850s, there were numerous units who came out here representing different branches from the United States Army. I myself am dressed in the 1850s infantry, which is represented by the light blue piping that you see on my uniform, as well as the light blue pom-pom that you see on my shako, which is my hat. To my right, you see two different other colors. Those are the early units as well that were out here representing the Regiment of Mounted Rifles in green and the U.S. Dragoons in orange. The U.S. Dragoons and Regiment of Mounted Rifles all became part of the cavalry by the American Civil War, but infantry stayed in the blue piping all the way until the 1890s when they switched to a white facing for their uniforms. The uniforms for the U.S. Army were made out of basic components consisting of wool and leather. They also had to use brass, of course, as well. Now with our pouches, we had my ammunition pouch and my cap pouch. My ammunition pouch is quite literally what that's for, to hold all my bullets. That way I can be ready in case I'm in for a fight. My cap pouch held a little piece that allowed my gun to fire, which we'll get into more later on. But with that little cap, it changed the name of the game, which again, we'll discuss later on. Now with the uniforms, the United States Army during the 1850s copied everything from foreign powers, mostly from the French and English in the 1850s. My shako, for example, came about in 1854 and was copied directly from the British design itself. Again, the blue piping and pom-pom color help indicate that I am an infantry, so I march everywhere. For the frock coat, as it's called, this is designed and developed from the French itself. This particular one is model 1854. It's noted as an 1854 because of its very high collar. And in this time also, if you happen to notice, I'm wearing a leather neck stock as well because the Army always expected their soldiers to stand tall and proud when marching around in uniform. You will also notice shoulder scales. Now this is for ceremony and parade functions only. These shoulder scales came about from an old holdover in the Army when swords were the primary weapon in combat. But by this time in the 1850s, these were strictly for decoration and ceremony only. Life as a soldier was very structured and regimented by the hour with the United States Army. Soldiers were expected to work 6 full days a week and still a half day on Sunday. Each day they were required and expected to wake up at 4:30 in the morning for morning roll call, where they would file in for breakfast and their morning traditions for whatever you need to when you wake up in the morning, i.e. brushing teeth and general cleanliness. They would also square their barracks away and prep everything for the day itself. After that, they would drill, followed by more drill and even more drill. They would spend potentially on a single day 6 to 8 hours just drilling on the parade ground alone. If they weren't drilling, they were doing various chores here on post. For the enlisted, they were the workforce for the United States Army. The NCOs and officers, which lived separately from the enlisted themselves, received a little bit better life than the basic soldier, but the basic soldier did receive a comfortable life for that period of time. They were given 3 square meals a day, plenty of food for anyone in that period of time. They were given a monthly allowance of $11 a month in the 1850s, and they were also given a place to sleep, such as this barracks that we're in now. With the soldiers, if they weren't drilling or they weren't doing chores, there was always plenty of tasks for the Army to keep them busy, be it helping out with the gardens down by the river, or helping out with anything the officers and NCOs needed the enlisted to do. If you were lucky in the evening, you might get 1 full night's sleep. But most soldiers out here, after hours, even had posts well into the night. And most soldiers would get maybe 4 hours of sleep total before the next day started again, and the routine would continue as before. As an enlisted soldier here at Fort Stanton, and with all forts in the 1850s, you lived in open squad bay barracks. What that meant was 1 room for all the soldiers of a single company, which could be up to 80 people itself. Now, with the beds of that time, they didn't call them beds, they called them cribs. And you could have anywhere from a 3-person crib to a 2-person crib. These particular ones were designed for 2 soldiers per crib, 4 for the bunk total. So hopefully you're friendly and familiar with all of your comrades in arms here in the squad bay. Now, with the beds itself, these cribs, if you were lucky, would have a mattress, such as what I'm sitting on now, which would have been a canvas material filled with straw, hay, any material they could have found from the area around. But most soldiers weren't so lucky to have a mattress to share, and instead had to sleep on the hardwood slats below. Since Walmart itself didn't exist, neither did Target or any of our big stores that we use today, soldiers on posts would use either a quartermaster building or a commissary building for their goods and supplies. The commissary itself stored food for the soldiers and the officers here on post, but the quartermaster building was where you would get all of your uniforms, gear, and equipment, such as what I'm wearing. This was basically your warehouse of the day. Now that it's time to get ready for drill, I don't need my ceremonial pieces such as my shoulder scales or my pom-pom. All of those are strictly for ceremony and parade functions, but when it came time to get to work, you were in your field uniform. Not much different, but still functionally different. Now, as my weapon of choice was the Model 1842 Springfield, this was a unique weapon for the infantry. It was the very first one that used a percussion cap system instead of the flintstone that was used during the Revolutionary War, but it was the last weapon that used no rifling in the barrel. The bullets were still your marble-looking balls that were made out of lead. Now, with this weapon, it took 9 steps to load. For new recruits, they would have to learn what they called by the numbers, where they would do a load in 9 times. We're standing out on the parade ground where the soldiers would spend their day drilling and practicing for musket fire demonstrations. Now, as I was stating, this is a load in 9 times. Veteran soldiers were expected to already know how to do this process, but for new recruits, they would have to practice by the numbers. Step 1. When you're standing at the position of attention, you would bring the weapon out to the front and grab the ammo pouch, preparing to grab a cartridge. Step 2, you would pull the cartridge out of the ammo pouch and place between your teeth. Step 3 allowed you to tear the cartridge with your teeth and then prepping to pour the cartridge down the powder. Step 4 was pouring the powder and seating the bullet on the tip of the barrel and preparing to grab the ramrod. Step 5 was pulling out the ramrod and placing it near the top of the barrel. Step 6, you would ram the bullet to the bottom of the barrel. The black powder would be underneath and would compress. Step 7, you would pull the ramrod out and place back into the musket. And step 8, you would bring the weapon up to the position of ready and go to the half cock. Step 9, your final process, is where you would bring your cap out and place
on the edge, there's a little hole there that this cap with a chemical called mercury fulminate, when hit with just the hammer, would spark. That would ignite the black powder, and boom, you would have your explosion. And all would be done on the command of fire. And then you would recover arms. Now, as I was saying earlier, a good soldier would be able to fire 3 rounds a minute, roughly 22 seconds per round. Let's see, it's a little windy out here today, but let's see if I could be a good soldier and get it within 20 seconds. Count along with me at the beginning of start and see if we get it within the proper time. Are you ready? Get to the position of attention and start! Ready, aim, fire! I hope you enjoyed yourselves on our virtual tour learning about early life for soldiers here at Fort Stanton. If you have any questions, please feel free to jump on in, ask in the comment box. We'll see you soon on our Facebook Live post being posted shortly.